was released, a clip of the late, great Carl Sagan discussing the original Star Wars made the rounds on social media. In it, Sagan noted the fact that the people who populated the fictional sci-fi setting in the film were almost entirely white.
Not polite to sneak up on people.
Did he? Before we get started, Anita, you're not about to make a pithy portrayal of Sagan's words, are you? I mean, I know you have a history of being dishonest and misrepresenting storytelling mediums. Surely you wouldn't do the same thing to Mr. Sagan. I trust you've learned from your past mistakes and will present your review with honesty and integrity.
Star Wars has a whole bunch of other things. They're all white. The skin of all the humans in Star Wars, oddly enough, is sort of like this.
Right.
And not even the other colors represented on the Earth are present, much less greens and blues and purples and oranges.
They did have a scene in Star Wars with a lot of strange characters.
Yeah, but none of them seem to be in charge of the galaxy.
Something seems off. I think we're missing some context here, and context always matters. So I took a look at the interview, which I do have linked down below. If you watched the interview, Carl was asked to elaborate on his opinion of the scientific inaccuracies of the original Star Wars movie.
Somebody'd ask you about the pictures that are out now. There's Star Wars, Close Encounters, and so forth, and they ask you what you thought. And you thought that they should be, not that you didn't say they were entertaining, but you thought maybe they should deal a little closer with scientific facts.
Carl mentions that it's extremely unlikely that humans would develop in another galaxy.
Star Wars starts out saying it's on some other galaxy.
Right.
And then you see there's people.
It should be of note that Carl is not just commenting on the color of human skin, but also of the alien species. His point blends both human and alien together in a wide brush. If we go back and look at the original cut of A New Hope, you see that very few aliens with a skin tone that isn't shared by humans, as well as the point that humans are the ones ruling the galaxy. Sure, you have Batman, Greedo, and, well, Satan in the cantina scene, but for most of the movie, it's humans that are the most present species. Carl was referring to the fact that they look like us, the human race as a whole, that they were all humanoid, 2 arms, 2 legs, and the like. Some even have Caucasian-colored skin, like the Bith. Do you know what the Bith are, Anita? These guys. Carl felt that aliens should have a more prominent role, even commenting on how Chewie didn't receive a medal at the ending ceremony scene. His focus in the conversation was largely on aliens and how out of place humans and humanoid attributes can be in the light of evolutionary biology. It was a subject that fascinated him, and rightfully so, because of his career path. I can only conclude that this obfuscation is just your basic quote mining. Shame on you for using Carl Sagan like this to influence your cult of personality.
But while Rogue One succeeds in the big picture sense of depicting a crucial moment in the rebellion's struggle against the mighty and oppressive Empire, it fails to make us care about the individual characters who are swept up in this conflict. The film is so densely plotted, so busy advancing the particulars of its story, or plowing through one of its many visually impressive action scenes, that it rarely takes the time to breathe and let us get to know the people who are doing the fighting.
Anita, people don't just watch movies for character development. Sure, some like myself do. Star Wars audiences, however, vary greatly. From your newcomers to your children to hardcore purists, the Star Wars movies are meant to appeal to a wide audience. Character development isn't the central idea behind Star Wars. That would be war. You don't need to have big, real feels for characters or in-depth backstories. The background information for most Star Wars characters when first introduced is generally minimal at best and then greatly expanded on by books, comics, games, and TV shows. Take a look at Luke Skywalker. How much do we really know about him in A New Hope? He is the nephew of a moisture farmer who dreams about getting off of this dust bowl of a planet, and his hobbies include playing with toy models and killing small animals. Outside of Leia being his sister and Vader being his father, we don't get much information about his past. That is because Star Wars movies are mostly a saga of the here and now.
So as visually impressive as they are, the film's space battles and ground skirmishes aren't as absorbing as they would be if we felt more of a connection to the characters. And when major characters die, you can almost feel the film straining to generate some powerful emotion that it hasn't earned because it hasn't taken the time to develop those characters.
Why do you need character development to absorb a series of combat scenes? What does that even mean? Anita, how has Rogue One not earned respect for its visuals? To a Star Wars fan, these scenes will already be absorbing. They have already earned their merit by being a Star Wars movie. Star Wars was built on impressive visuals. A lack of character development doesn't take that away, but perhaps you mean death scenes. I would like to point out that Rogue One didn't have an opening crawl. Let's look at an article by Brent Lang from Variety magazine. Link is also in the description. And quote, Lucasfilm chief Kathleen Kennedy describes the movie as a World War II style adventure. We felt that it's so indicative of what those Star Wars films are, says Kennedy. Initially, we probably will begin the film in a way that is traditional, with just the title. While Rogue One is a link in the Star Wars saga, its purpose is to elaborate on an existing moment of time. The characters in the story are essentially forfeit, smaller players in the bigger game. Jyn and her crew are a footnote, right there in the original crawl, second paragraph. But continuing on.
If you're a Star Wars fan, some of the most effective moments in Rogue One may be those times when familiar characters from Episode 4 show up, because we've already developed an emotional investment in those characters. Rogue One uses this to its advantage, occasionally tossing in familiar characters or visual references to Episode 4 purely as a bit of fan service, rather than because it's important to the story this film is telling.
What are you talking about, Anita? People put time and money creating and developing these characters. Those characters earned our emotional investment. I can see fan service as being a negative thing if done wrong, but why is fan service such a bad thing if it's done correctly?
So while it's great to see characters like Jyn in Rogue One and Rey in The Force Awakens having prominent roles, it hardly indicates an end to patriarchy, either in the Star Wars universe or in the film industry.
And now you're reaching. Rey was a bland, bitey Mary Sue in the way that she was good at everything she does. She is almost instantly proficient with swordplay, and her force powers develop at a stupidly alarming rate, both of which canon lore establish take years of training. She really seems like someone's original RPG character more than someone who fits with the general Jedi trope. But you know all about tropes, don't you, Anita? I mean, sure, I can accept that there is some patriarchy in the film industry, because the film industry means more than just Hollywood. There's something else I would like to touch on, and that's the idea of something negative in a fictional world. Where did this random idea that the Star Wars universe is patriarchal even come from? Is it the villains? Because it certainly isn't the Rebellion, and it isn't the Sith either, who rule by way of the Galactic Empire. There's a history of female Sith in Star Wars. The Sith certainly are oppressive, but I'd hesitate to call them a patriarchy. Aside from this, what is wrong with there being an oppressive or even patriarchal system in a fictional world? Fiction is supposed to reflect on the real world, things good and bad. Just because something is bad, uncomfortable, or evil in a storytelling medium does not mean a work should be ostracized. These things happen, and that's why we insert these actions, motives, and freaking concepts into our fiction. This gives a state of realism for fantasy, science fiction, or any other kind of storytelling genre. Let me make an example. If you have a copy of the book Jurassic Park, go grab it and turn it to page 26, 27, or 28, depending on which edition of the book is. Around this area in the novel, an unattended newborn gets its face chewed off by 3 compies. Is this a bad thing? Yes. Does it belong in the novel? Yes. Why? Because in reality, babies get their faces chewed off by animals, and there is no reason why a storyteller should be denied the right to put anything into their creation. It is their creation, not yours. Constructive critique of fiction ends where self-righteous criticism begins.
But because so much of its focus is on communicating plot, and not enough focus goes into developing its characters and their relationships with each other, the all-important human element gets a bit lost in all the sound and fury of war.
Anita, you must be osmium because you are freaking dense. What is the name of the series? The entire saga is based around war. These aren't superheroes and villains who clash from time to time, but an active galactic scale war. How disingenuous can you be? I'm done with this. I don't need to make a comment on this last bit. I think it speaks for itself. So like this video if you did, or if you don't, subscribe, and, well, I'm going out to eat.
Look at that, yeah. Was a kill, huh? Meat group!